So the key to survival of humanity and the planet, Benoit states, the ozone layer is not battered. CFC, fluorocarbons, have not been destroying the ozone layer. And the Antarctic ozone hole, which is not an actual hole, but a seasonal thinning of the ozone layer, was first observed in 1956, long before CFCs came into common use. Robert W. Lee, the Antarctic ozone depletion is evident during September and October, lasts for a few weeks, then returns to normal by late November, December. It has been measured on a consistent annual basis only since 1985. In some years it worsens, while in others it improves, in what appears to be a natural ebb and flow associated more with such favors as sunspot activity, planetary waves, major storms, currents of absence of the El Niño warm current in the eastern tropical Pacific Ocean. On September 8, 1984, researchers at the National Center for Atmospheric Research announced that satellite measurements had found that the sun's ultraviolet radiation affects the concentration of ozone in the atmosphere, and that the changes may have inflated estimates of human damage to the ozone layer, as is still the case. The center's Dr. John Gilley asserted that in the past, if scientists thought that an ozone decrease had occurred in the stratosphere, it could have been mistaken for a chlorofluorocarbon effect from spray cans and other sources, when it was a solar effect. How many times have you heard that? How many times have those fluorocarbon cans been thrown out? If ozone is indeed declining on a global basis, there should be an increase in UVB radiation reaching the Earth's surface. To the contrary, however, ground measurements indicate that such UV has, if anything, been decreasing. Gary Benoit goes on to say, as Dr. Dixie Lee Ray notes in her book, Environmental Overkill, ozone concentrations on any particular day may differ dramatically from the next. These changes in ozone concentration occur naturally. In the northern latitudes, ozone concentration differ as much as 40%, even within a few days. By representing these natural fluctuations, the ozone layer can be made to appear battered, when in fact it is not. But suppose that the CLO really is destroying the ozone layer faster than nature's ability to replenish it. Would the chloride release by the breakup of CFCs in the atmosphere be responsible? Not at all. Since chlorine is one of the most abundant ions found in nature. Dr. Ray's notes, seawater evaporation provides the atmosphere with 600 million tons of chloride per year. Volcanic eruptions emit millions of tons of chloride, and at least another million tons of chloride are produced naturally every year. By comparison, world production of CFCs at its peak reached 1.1 million tons per year. At this rate, there would be roughly 750,000 tons of chloride available from CFCs annually. Besides, how could a substantial amount of CFCs get into the stratosphere when CFC molecules are 4 to 8 times heavier than air? And how do these heavier than air molecules, most of which are released in the northern hemisphere, find their way to the South Pole to create an ozone hole there? Robert W. Lee. The volcanic eruption of Mount Tambora in Indonesia, 1813, ejected 211 million tons of chloride. At the highest rate of worldwide CFC production, it would have taken about 282 years to produce as much chloride-yielding CFCs as this one eruption. Mount Erebus, Antarctica, has been producing 1,000 tons of chloride daily for more than 2 decades. The volcano is located, Dr. Ray observes, only 10 kilometers upwind of McMurdo Sound, where ozone measurements are made. The volcano pumps about 50 times more chlorine annually than an entire year's production of CFCs. And interestingly enough, The amount of chloride calculated to be in the stratosphere at any one time is 50 to 60 times higher than the chloride that comes from CFCs every year. Other active volcanoes such as El Chicon in Mexico, Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines, Mount Helena, USA, and many others add far more chloride into the stratosphere than man. John F. McManus states in the New American, behind the Freon frenzy. In September 1991, NASA placed an unmanned satellite in orbit for the specific purpose of measuring man-made chemicals in the upper atmosphere. NASA then launched the Atlantis Space Shuttle 1992, again to measure man-made chemicals in the upper atmosphere. They cannot admit that they have been wrong in so many press conferences for so many years by releasing the truth that only an infinitesimal quantity of CFCs ever rose up into the stratosphere. So they now claim no attempt was made to measure CFCs specifically, and that neither mission had an instrument aboard to measure CFCs. Automotive air conditioning engineer Bob Holtzknecht, Cocoa, Florida. Ozone is created by sunshine, energy rays from the sun. For several weeks each year, the natural tilt of the Earth's axis shields the South Pole from its daily sunshine. During those weeks, very little new ozone gets created. To attribute the ozone hole to escaping Freon in Antarctica makes no sense. How many air conditioners and refrigerators exist on the whole continent? 0. But references to Antarctica's annual ozone hole show up in the media every September, the end of the region's long, dark winter. There you go. So that's the end of the campaign, global warming, and so on.